Hi, everybody. It's Aluna Michaels, Esoteric Astrologer, coming at you to talk about the events of April 2026. I'm doing this video a little bit early, so because I won't be at this computer to make the videos for a little bit. So sorry it's messy. Those of you who know me know what's going on. It's been a few months of interesting stuff going on in my life. But I want to be here for you to talk about the events of the month. So thanks again, as always, to the guys at Know Thyself Podcast. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. I want to start with the biggest news of April, which happens at the end of April, and then we'll go backwards. But April 26th, basically, Uranus goes into Gemini. It's kind of neat when any outer planet changes signs. And we say the outer planets are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, right? But we could also say Saturn is like sort of a bridge kind of planet, and Saturn just changed signs. Pluto changed signs in November 2024, and that was a big deal because that happens once every 20 to 30 years. Neptune changed signs at the end of January 2026. And that changes signs once every 14 years, went into Aries. Saturn went into Aries right along with Neptune, so that had extra zhuzh with it, and that was Valentine's Day. And now here we have Uranus going to change signs. At the end of June, Jupiter's going to go into Leo, which is kind of cool about what I'll talk about, and we'll get back to that when it comes time. But so Saturn, I didn't mention Saturn changes signs every 2.5 years, and Uranus changes signs once every 7 years. But what's really cool is that all of these outer planets, let's just say Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are going to be angling one another. So because Pluto is an Aquarius and air sign, Uranus is going to Gemini and air sign, they'll be trining 120-degree angle, which is a good flow of energy, easy flow of energy. Not that there's good and bad, but some angles are easier than others, as we know. And then Neptune being in Aries and also Saturn in Aries are sextiling, making a 60-degree angle to both, once the Uranus goes into Gemini, it'll make that angle to Uranus, and also Neptune and Saturn make that same 60-degree angle on the other side to Pluto. And this is very hopeful and very harmonious. Things have been stressful, obviously, for a lot of people. It's interesting because, and not that Taurus is bad, but once we've done the way that planet is saying, okay, I've done that sign for 7 years, I'm ready for something else, And at the end of Taurus, Uranus is so much about free thinking and motivated mental energy. And the worst part of Taurus is it's very stubborn and it's very not taking chances and just kind of staying the same. Whereas when Uranus goes into Gemini, it's like free thinking and learning and like this excitement around learning. And Uranus is also about democracy and fairness and inclusion. And Uranus is about all different types of people getting along, or kind of like a mosaic, like things that you wouldn't think would get along kind of good next to each other. Or, I think about watermelon feta salad. I remember when I first saw a recipe for that, I was like, what? Why? But then you have it as it's so good. Like the salty with that sweet and the flavors kind of work. And so it's like a surprising thing that people that are very dissimilar could get along, or ideas that are dissimilar actually synergize and connect and dovetail and make something really exciting and innovative. So the idea of Uranus going into a sign like Gemini, which thinks freely and can, some people don't like the sign of Gemini because it can flip-flop, but the idea that you can shift and kind of integrate new ideas quickly, that's where it's really great that we're going into Gemini there. And the fact that the Pluto and the Neptune being in Aquarius and Aries respectively, bring out even better parts of Uranus being in Gemini. And So I think there's a lot of hope with that. People wanting to learn, especially, and not just say, okay, that's the way it is. It's like, no, why is it that way? Or how could it be different? Or, how did we get here? And even in your own personal life, too, about looking at issues in your life that seem really stuck, especially since the end of Uranus being in Taurus, can again kind of be like, well, that's the way it is, or that's the way I am, or that's the way things have always been, or I've tried so hard before to change, and doesn't seem to change. But that Uranus can just kind of, Uranus going into Gemini, that shift, no matter how that works in your chart, can bring like some sort of revelation or insight or ability to see things differently and have a different result in your life. And the planet Uranus also represents our nervous system and especially our brain. And so it's how the brain is wired. And again, Gemini going to Gemini. And oh, I didn't say this too, hasn't been here for about 84 years. So, so it's not that a lot of us watching this are under 84 years old, so we've never had this energy of Uranus and Gemini, but it really helps to repattern your brain and your thinking and all sorts of stuff that you might have felt was just the way things are, shoulder shrug with Taurus and putting up with it, enduring it. And Uranus Gemini says, we don't have to endure it. We can do this or that. And it's like, oh, wow, that was a breakthrough, So I'm hopeful for that. It's exciting. And then when we get to the end of June and Jupiter goes into Leo, we have here another fire sign. So all these planets being in fire and air and working together. We'll talk about that even more. Expansiveness and inclusion and open-mindedness. So it's fingers crossed. Okay. But personally, in your own life, it can really help you, again, break out of old habits. And even if you're trying new things, sometimes you don't have to do that thing all the time. It triggers something positive that accomplishes something and that change happens. So it isn't like you have to be so much in a routine, like when things are in Taurus, you keep doing it and doing it and doing it. But sometimes with Gemini, I've got my hair there. It's falling on. So when things happen to go into Gemini like that, you take the action and the change happens. So you're just sort of working with that new path and you don't have to keep doing the thing that made the change happen, if that makes sense. So don't think you're being flaky if you say, oh, I'm going to do this stuff. And then, whoop, the result happens. And you don't need to keep doing those actions. You just go forward on that new path and kind of let yourself off the hook. Because change can happen fast with Uranus and Gemini. So, okay, so that's the most exciting thing, I think, about the month. A lot of people think it's exciting when, even though Mercury went direct in March, we wait for Mercury to go out of the shadow people talk about. So Mercury went retrograde at 22 degrees of Pisces in February. It went back to 8 degrees of Pisces in March. Then it went forward again. So then we say, okay, where is Mercury going to be at 22 degrees of Pisces again? When's that? And that would be like the 9th of April. So some people who are real sensitive to Mercury retrogrades feel like, oh boy, it's completely covering new territory now, and that can be uplifting for a lot of people, or just because Mercury retrograde is so meditative and can seem frustrating to certain people. A lot of people like me to tell you when it goes out of the shadow period. So that's happening on the 9th. Also, what's cool about just the first half of April is I was mentioning all the different planets working together, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Well, Saturn is specifically going to be sextiling, making that 60-degree angle to Pluto the first half of April. And again, Saturn is about planning, and Pluto also can be about deep results because Pluto is linked with Mars, and Mars is about taking action. So again, there's things about long-range goals paying off. And especially when it comes to like addictions or obsessive thinking kind of things that Pluto represents, that Saturn says, like, all of those small steps you've taken that might have feeling they're in vain, they actually break through. Can also be really good for finances, because of Saturn and Pluto being about just having your needs met, and then Pluto's about investments. So that can be good. But also just really good about feeling that you're not a victim to circumstances, that what you do really matters and makes a difference, even if it took a while, and you can feel good about making more long range plans too. So that's uplifting as well. Um, so, some other interesting stuff people have brought up to me, like everything's going to be lined up in Aries. And it's not everything, but at the 15th of the month, we're going to have the 14th, 15th. Well, I guess it more is 15th, 16th. The moon will be in Aries, and then it will be close to Mercury and Mars. I've got to put Mars in there. Oh, and Saturn and Neptune. So it is quite a lineup. The moon, of course, moves really fast, but it just sort of triggers it off. But, the moon is our emotions. Mercury is about how we think. Mars is taking action. Saturn, again, about planning. And then that Neptune is about, Saturn's about like writing down the plans, whereas Neptune is like dreaming the plans, So on a daily kind of thing, sometimes just the Mercury, Mars, and Saturn together can be a little bit frustrating to certain people that want to see quick results. And it can be a time where if you have to talk to somebody, depending on the temperament of the other person, if somebody is like a purposeful thinker, non-reactionary, it can be really good to talk to somebody about long-standing issues. But if someone's real reactionary and gets frustrated easily, maybe waiting for later in the month or just waiting another week for Mercury and Mars to move past the Saturn, because then also the Mercury, Mars near Neptune can make people confused. But if they're a thoughtful type person, it can create really positive outcome with decision making together. But again, if people are reactive, and then it's not as good because they sort of jump to conclusions, they're imagining stuff. So that one, a lot of times when there's conjunctions, I don't want to say it's good or bad, but it depends on who you are and who the other people are, because it's a lot of energy coming together. And how do those certain people feel about those certain energies coming together, So kind of follow your judgment there. But it is an interesting time if you like to, like I was talking about the Saturn-Pluto sextile, you like to make plans or do, like creatively visualizing things or setting intentions and stuff like that. If you feel you have accomplished something in a big portion of what you can accomplish, it's great to be setting up the long range plans and visualizing what do you want for your future, and what steps would you be taking, and maybe affirmations you want to say or actions you want to take about kind of feeling like you're that person in the future who's accomplished that. It's a really good time for that sort of thing, on a personal growth level. Then, interestingly, that's the 15th. When the moon moves further into Aries, a few days later, we've got a new moon, the sun and moon, of course, conjuncting at a new moon, and then Chiron with it, which is kind of interesting. That's like the 18th of the month. A new moon is great, again, especially in Aries, about, what's new, what's fresh for you, and what's the long range goals of, like, it's something about Aries is like, the pioneer and setting out. And that Chiron is not a planet. We think it's a comet that got caught in our solar system, and it's between Saturn and Uranus. And Chiron is a lot about healing, deep healing. It can be kind of like Saturn, about healing issues from your heritage or intergenerational trauma kind of things, but how you can, again, see yourself out of long range patterns you've been unhappy with. So there's kind of that theme for April. So that new moon, again, it's like knowing that there is hope. And again, we're getting closer to that Uranus going into Gemini, which is opening up all those new possibilities. So that's that new moon. Um, also, um, Jupiter, oh, let me say it this way, Venus is going to be sextiling Jupiter. So Venus is in Taurus and Jupiter is in Cancer. Um, and that's just a nice, smooth kind of energy. And that's at the middle of the month as well. And Jupiter is very open-hearted, and Venus is about love. So it's great for relationships, again, making money. Venus is about money, Jupiter being abundance. But it's a nice, like, soft energy. And I think that helps with all that airy stuff that we've got going on at the same time. So that can sort of create a sense of softness. Hopefully, those people that get hyped up when there's a lot of conjunctions like that. So that's really kind of kind, a sense of kindness. Um, and it's a great time for relationships in general. Um, and especially if you're trying to work things through in relationships. Just a lot of communication opening up in general this month, whether you need to time in a certain way because of all those conjunctions in Aries or later, but just bodes really well for people being able to get along. Okay, so I think I've talked long enough. And if you want to get a session from me, you can. My phone number is below the YouTube video, 248-583-1663. You can call or text. You can go to my website, alunamichaels.com, or send me an email, aluna3366@gmail. And I will see you next month. Have a good time till then. Talk to you later. Bye.